Hi everyone, I am Angela Cruz with Smokey Hill Designs, and today's product feature is raw MDF. Plain Jane, but it definitely has its advantages. We're going to talk about those. If you are from the Glowforge world, this is the same thing as draft board. So this is MDF, that stands for medium density fiber board. It's made from, they bind together wood fibers to make this, and it kind of has a cardboardy sort of look and feel to it. That's the way I always describe it. It sort of looks like cardboard. We offer it in 3 different thicknesses. This is 1/8 inch here. We also have a thinner, we have a 1/16 inch, and we have a thicker, we have a 1/4 inch, depending on your project needs. And I have made myself a little list of the pros and cons of MDF. MDF is great because it is very inexpensive, and it also cuts very consistently. So you can see, like, whereas wood has different grain and they can vary a little bit in how you cut them. MDF, every time, same deal. It's inexpensive. It's a great way to practice. If you are a new laser owner, you're trying to get a feel for your laser, practice on MDF. Don't spend a bunch of money on more expensive woods or acrylics or things like that. Practice on the MDF. Get comfortable with your laser. It's also, due to being inexpensive, it's great for if you have, let's say you have a pretty complicated cut that you want to do for a project and you want to use it for pattern ply, which is a more expensive material, or maybe a glitter acrylic or something like that. Practice your cut on the MDF first, especially if it's a new file for you, or if you're working on designing files and you haven't gotten all the bugs worked out yet on scoring, what color, what score should you use, what settings for the cut, just making sure everything works together, making sure that the hole for your earring isn't too close to the edge. Practice on the MDF. It's a great way to see how your cut works and not spend a bunch of money doing it, and knowing that it's just going to cut really easily, really fast, and be simple for you. Something that is a con, it's great for practice, but it may make your laser a little bit dirtier, so you might just need to clean it a little more often because it can be a little dusty when cutting. Not everyone has this problem, but you may need to clean your laser a little more often if you're running a lot of MDF through it. Another pro is that it is great for painting. So this is you will need to prime this with many paints, otherwise they tend to soak up, which could be a con for MDF. It does tend to act like a sponge. So if it gets wet, it tends to soak it up. And if you paint on its own, like especially if you spray paint, it will just, if you go back and look at our videos, we have a video, we sell already primed MDF, so you don't have to spend any money or time priming it yourself. If you go back and watch our primed MDF video, you'll see I spray painted, I forget how many coats of paint on just MDF. I think it was like 10 coats, and it just soaked it up and did not have the vibrancy of the single coat that I sprayed on a primed sheet of MDF. So if you do plan on painting, most paints you will need to prime this first in order to have vibrant colors. Otherwise it just soaks it right up like a sponge. But another con then is that MDF is not really great for any finished projects. You really need to do something else to it, whether that's painting. It just has this unfinished, really like drab look to it unless you're going to do something. So I wouldn't just cut an ornament out of this and sell it as is. You're going to need to add some paint, some flair, something else to it. Otherwise it's just sort of brown. So that could be a con for you, that it's not just cut and go. You need to take an extra step with it. Let's see. Another con is that it is a little bit weaker than plywood. So plywood, let me show you, I actually have a piece here. You can see here that plywood is actually, we use an MDF core, and on either side of that core is a wood veneer. So that wood veneer does add some structural integrity to it. So in terms of just bendability and strength, that does bulk it up and make it a bit stronger. The MDF just on its own does lack that little bit of structure to it. But a pro is if you have problems with warping, just the plain MDF on its own doesn't warp as readily as the plywoods because it's that wood that's sort of bending there for it. So if you want everything to lay flat, this one you won't have as much problem with the warping. It's also really great for kids projects. Our daughter, I give her a piece of MDF when she comes here to the warehouse and she colors on it with markers. Not the most beautiful thing in the world, but she loves to play with her markers on it, and the kids' paints tend to not absorb as crazy through it. Those thick paints, they don't really absorb as readily through it as some of the more adult paints or the spray paints, things like that. So she paints on it, she colors on it with markers, so it's a nice inexpensive thing. If you wanted to have some crafts, some sort of color your own things for kids, it is a great option for that. It's not good for things that are going outside, way out in the elements, because of that sponge-like quality where it soaks up the paint. It also will soak up water. So you don't want to put this out and have this get rained on its own. Now we do have a weather resistant MDF round that you can find on our website if you're going to make a door sign or something like that, but I would not recommend just the plain raw MDF for anything that's going to go way out in the elements. If it's on a door behind a screen, you can get away with it if you've painted it and sealed it and things like that, but I would not stick this out. It's going to swell up like a sponge. So that sort of sums up the pros and cons of MDF. Inexpensive, great for practice cuts, but you do need to do things like prime it, paint it in order to have finished good. But it is a quality product. There are lots of different MDFs out there, and we did a ton of research, a ton of testing before we settled our MDF, and it cuts like butter. We hear it all the time, cuts like butter. It's a great product. So give it a try. It's a nice little practice tool here. So give our MDF a try and let me know. We're gonna make videos for all the woods and all the different products we have, so let me know what you wanna see. Thank y'all so much.